Okay, all right. Finally, it's time to talk about the Chad class, the big class, the pumper class, the kings of Classic WoW, the warrior. But are they any good in pre-patch? We're about to find out. Starting off the Pve specs, we're going to talk about a deep prot build for mitigating as much damage as possible. And yes, I know, normally in Classic WoW at this stage of the game, we have tanks go a hybrid tanking spec, also known as Fury Prot, and we will be covering a Fury Prot build as well. But if I only covered a Fury Prot build, I know some people out there would mention, hey, I'd really like to see a deep prot build as well with all of the new talents. So we are going to cover a deep prot build before we get into the Fury Prot. The very first talent build we're going to look at is one that we already had in Classic WoW, but did change a little bit, and that's Anticipation. Now, normally for Fury Prot and prot builds in general, you don't absolutely necessarily have to go for this talent, especially in Phase 6, with Naxxramas out and our choice of whatever gear we want in the game for the most part. What this skill really does is if you want to splash a little bit of defense in this skill and gear a little bit more offensively rather than go for defense, you can. But what changes is, with 5 out of 5 points in Anticipation with the skill tree now with TBC pre-patch, we get 20 defense skill. Compared to Classic WoW, if we went 5 points into this, we only got 10 defense skill. So each point in Anticipation is literally double the value that it was in Classic WoW. Meaning that if you go into this build, since you get double the defense, you can gear more offensively than you could in previous Classic WoW builds. Then moving down the tree, we have some talents that are exactly the same. Shield Specialization, Shield Block, Toughness, Last Stand, Defiance of course is really good. Improved Taunt, obviously really decent to have. Improves Under Armor, Improved Shield Wall, Concussive Blow, all talents that we're used to. But then we start getting down to some new talents, such as Shield Mastery. Increases the amount of damage absorbed by your shield by 30%. And like I said before, if we're going for a full mitigation build, then this talent point ends up mitigating a decent chunk of damage. Then we have Shield Slam, our cooldown ability that we have in this tree. Focused Rage reduces the cost of all your offensive rage abilities by 3, which is always good. This helps us get out more abilities over the course of a fight. And then Vitality, this is also a really big new talent that you get for the deep prot build. Increases your total stamina by 5% and your total strength by 10%. So not only is it increasing your health pool, which is not always necessary, but still good, but it's also giving you more attack power through the 10% strength bonus, and 10% is quite a lot of extra stats to have. And then lastly, of course, we have Devastate, which is essentially Sunder Armor with a bit of extra damage added on top. And then the extracurricular points that we have to finish off this tree at level 60 would be Improved Heroic Strike, so we can spam Heroic Strike onto our auto attacks as much as possible, and then 2 points into Deflection for a little bit extra chance to parry and mitigate more damage. Now, I know that most people out there, most tank players in Classic WoW, we are not currently playing a deep prot build, and you're more interested in a Fury Prot build. So let's get on to that Fury Prot build, the second build here for PvE. And this is the Fury Prot build that I personally came up with, but as you'll see as we go on with different builds, there are a lot of different interesting talents for warriors in the TBC talent trees. So this might not be the absolute best Fury Prot tree. You might want to splash into a few other talent points, but I think that this is a decent choice to go for. So before looking at the protection tree, let's look at what we're actually picking up in the Fury tree. Obviously, we start off with 5 out of 5 Cruelty for that little bit extra crit chance on our melee weapons. Unbridled Wrath, which is a small talent, doesn't give you absolutely game-changing abilities, but it does give you a little bit more rage generation, which means more heroic strikes. And then, of course, we have Commanding Presence, increase the melee attack power of your battle shout and the bonus health of your commanding shout. But at level 60, we will not have commanding shout. So this is basically just like the classic WoW talent, increasing the battle shout, increasing the melee attack power of your battle shout. Then, of course, we have dual wield specialization, which we already had before, enrage, which we already had before, and then we start to see a really big change, and that is sweeping strikes. Normally, this point here in Classic WoW would be Death Wish, not Sweeping Strikes. But in TBC, they swap these out, so Death Wish is now an arms ability, and Sweeping Strikes is now a Fury ability. So what does this mean? This means that we have a little bit less burst threat on single target bosses. You're going to do a little bit less damage on single target bosses, aka a little bit less threat, but this is going to increase your capabilities for tanking multiple targets. And then, of course, we have Flurry, Bloodthirst, and a little bit extra hit rating with Precision, which basically means if we get hit rating here, we can manipulate our gear and go with a little bit less hit rating, more for raw stats type gear, or if we really want to, more defensive gear. And then, of course, we pick up the juicy 5 points into Anticipation, just because, like I said before, this is literally giving you double the defense rating that it did last time. So by picking up this defense rating and having Precision, you can really go for a lot of raw stats on your gear and not absolutely have to rely on gear that has defense or hit rating and things like that. You're still going to want a bit more hit rating. 3% hit rating just from Precision is obviously not enough, but gaining these free stats in the talent points just opens up a lot more opportunities for your gearing. Now, the only thing that really changes here in the protection tree is the addition of Tactical Mastery. You retain up to 15 rage whenever you change stances. Now, that's something we're already used to. That's something that was previously in the arms tree, but let's read what else it does. Also greatly increases the threat generated by your Bloodthirst and Mortal Strike abilities when you're in defensive stance. So normally as a Fury Prot warrior, you're already in defensive stance, spamming Bloodthirst on cooldown. You're already doing that. And now this gives you an even better threat modifier on the ability that you're already spamming on cooldown. So this is a nice little added bonus that we didn't have in Classic WoW, and we do now. So it's going to increase our threat generation, not insane amounts, but still overall going to be a general increase on threat generation. And you might ask, well, why aren't we going further into the Fury tree? And if we go further into the Fury tree, there aren't that many good additional options other than maybe Cleave for some AoE, maybe improved Demo Shout, but improved Berserker Stance, the second to last tier in the Fury tree, isn't necessarily something that Fury Prot wants, because it only affects the warrior if the warrior is in Berserker Stance. So this second to last talent point is essentially not really useful at all for a Fury Prot warrior. And the Rampage ability, it is good. It gives us attack power, so it gives us more damage, it gives us more threat per second. But the abilities we would have to drop in order to get down here aren't necessarily worth it. If you look at our extracurricular talents, our splashes in the 2 trees, we could take 2 points out of improved heroic strike, I guess, but we really don't want to lose Last Stand, and we definitely do not want to lose Defiance. So I personally opted to only go down to Bloodthirst with a little bit of hit rating. Okay, speaking of Fury, now let's get into Fury DPS. And once again, you guys, there are some points here that I wasn't quite sure about, so some of you Fury Warrior mains out there, maybe you'll be able to correct me here, but I didn't see many other reasonable options other than the points I went into. So let's break that down. Again, we have Cruelty, Unbridled Wrath. This time we have improved Cleave to make our AoE damage all the better. Commanding Presence, Dual Wield Specialization, all of this is normal. Enrage, this is normal. Sweeping Strikes for even better AoE damage. Flurry, And now we're also picking up Weapon Mastery. Reduces the chance for your attacks to be dodged by 2% and reduces the duration of all disarm effects against you by 50%. So the only thing here that we're really looking at is the 2% chance reduction on dodge, but really this isn't a game-breaking ability. But again, I wasn't quite sure what to put this into. You could put this into Improved Execute, but that's also not going to be absolutely game-changing. Or potentially into Improved Berserker Rage, and maybe this is the right choice. I'm not quite sure, but even Improved Berserker Rage is a very minor talent. It's not going to completely change the way the spec plays, or even be a huge significant damage boost. And then again, later on down the tree, we get Precision, Bloodthirst, Improved Whirlwind, and then jump into Improved Berserker Stance. Now, Improved Berserker Stance for an actual Fury DPS warrior is really, really good. Not only is it increasing your total attack power by 10%, that means a Nixia buff, that means Juju Might, that means Juju Power, all of your gear, strength that you get in stats through ZG buff, strength that you get through stats with Blessing of Kings, Blessing of Might, totems, everything that you're getting attack power from, it's giving you an extra 10%. This is really, really good. And on top of that, it's also reducing the amount of threat caused by you. So this is all around a fantastic talent point for Fury Warriors and exactly what they want to see. And then, of course, lastly, we have Rampage, which is the new last bottom tier talent point in the Fury tree, costing 20 rage, instant cast. A warrior goes into a rampage, increasing attack power by 30 and causing most successful attacks to increase attack power by an additional 50. This can stack up to 5 times, lasting 30 seconds. So this is a really, really big AP boost for the Fury Warriors. And then, of course, the last few talent points that we splash into are Heroic Strike. Now, you might notice that we aren't spec'd into Impale. And yes, obviously, Impale is a really, really big ability for DPS warriors. And if we were trying to go into Impale, we would have to sacrifice a ton of talents, including Rampage and Improved Berserker Stance. So I'm not quite sure if that much is worth sacrificing for Impale. Maybe it is, but I suspect not. So let's see how many points we would actually have to drop. Alright, as you can see, we can still reach Bloodthirst if we go for Impale, but we lose 1 point into Flurry, we lose 3% hit rating from Precision, we lose cooldown reduction on Whirlwind, which honestly isn't that big of a deal, but we also, on top of losing 3% hit rating, 1 point into Flurry, but we're also losing Improved Berserker Stance, which is huge, and the AP from Rampage. So like I said before, I don't suspect that this is better. I don't suspect that it's better to go into Impale over losing all of this stuff, but maybe you Fury Warrior mains out there know better than I do, and it ends up that this is better. But I suspect, once again, that going for Rampage, going for Improved Berserker Stance, and going for this hit rating is going to be better than going for Impale. But what if we absolutely want to play Impale? What if we just want to play an arms build? Well, I think that there's actually potential for an arms build now with these TBC talents. So the last Pve spec that we're going to talk about is going to be an arms build for DPS. Alright, so this is the arms build that I was talking about. Starting off with 3 points into Improved Heroic Strike, 3 points into Deflection, Iron Will, which obviously isn't a straight up DPS increase, but it's always nice to reduce the chance to get stunned. Anger Management for more rage generation. 3 out of 3 deep wounds so we can reach down into Impale. 1 point into Improved Overpower. This is just a filler talent so I could get further down into the tree. This isn't absolutely necessary talent. 5 out of 5 two-handed weapon specialization, Death Wish, and then Weapon Mastery. And I'm going to point out that I put down sword specialization. Obviously, this is going to depend on what weapon you currently have. What weapon is the best weapon that you currently have on your warrior. So It could be that you go for axe specialization and you're an orc, so that's obviously good for you. So if you have a really, really good axe, you could go into poleaxe specialization. If you're running Bone Reaver's Edge, or if you have a really, really good sword, you could go sword specialization, or you could go mace specialization. And I do want to point out with mace specialization, in the past, in Classic WoW, this would only give your melee attacks a chance to stun the target, and that's it. But now, it also has a chance to generate 7 additional rage whenever you hit with your mace. So while this isn't necessarily as good as sword specialization or poleaxe specialization, it's not necessarily absolutely terrible either. And then we get 3 out of 3 improved disciplines, which is yet another new ability, reducing the cooldown of retaliation, recklessness, and shield wall by 10 minutes, and also increasing their duration. So not only is this giving you massive cooldown reduction, but increasing the duration of an ability like recklessness when you're popping all your trinkets and you're just nuking the boss is really quite significant. I like this talent point a lot. And then, of course, we dip into Mortal Strike. We get 2 out of 2 Blood Frenzy, which also is a new ability in the TBC talent tree, where your Rend and Deep Wounds ability have a chance to increase all melee damage done to that target by 4%. So not only is this going to be increasing the damage that you do to the boss, but it's also going to be increasing the damage that hunters' pets are going to do, rogues are going to do, other warriors in your group, your tanks in your group, all of the above. And then we get 5 out of 5 improved Mortal Strike, reduces the cooldown of your Mortal Strike ability by 1 second, which may seem minor, but over the span of a fight, that 1 second might yield you 1, 2, or 3 extra Mortal Strikes, depending on how long the boss fight is, obviously. The quicker the boss fight, the less of an impact this is actually going to make, and the longer a boss fight is, the more of an impact this is going to make. But not only does it reduce the cooldown, it also increases the damage done by Mortal Strike by 5%, which is minor once again, but still quite nice to have. And then lastly, we have Endless Rage, increasing the rage you generate by 25%. And then the extracurricular talent points that we dip into is obviously going to be Cruelty for that juicy crit rating, and Unbridled Wrath for a little bit more rage generation. And I think that this arms build might actually be pretty decent, especially if we get more debuffs, aka TBC-like debuffs, so we can actually spam Mortal Strike and not worry about things, because Mortal Strike leaves a debuff, and Blood Frenzy is also going to leave a debuff. So if we actually get more debuff slots and not have to worry about that, I think this build can be pretty good. Having Death Wish, strong Mortal Strikes, you have big damage with Impale, and overall generating way more rage. Not only that, but remember in TBC pre-patch, we have Paladins and Shamans on both factions. So now as an arms warrior, yes, you're gonna gain all the attack power from having a Paladin with Blessing of Kings, Blessing of Might, and all that good stuff, but also you're going to have Wind Fury Totem from your Shamans. So it's not gonna feel as clunky going with this two-hander build. Okay, I know I said this arms build was going to be the last PvE build, but I was thinking of somewhat of a hybrid build as I was actually making this build. And I was thinking to myself, well, for warriors, it's really important to have either Mortal Strike or Bloodthirst, because you want an ability that doesn't interact with your auto attack swing timer. And I was thinking to myself, what other warrior abilities do we have that aren't dealing with auto attack swing timers like Heroic Strike does or like Cleave does? And I was thinking, well, I kind of like this two-handed build actually. So what ability could we use? And then I started to remember a video that I saw a couple weeks ago about a warrior raiding Naxxramas with a two-handed slam build. And yes, I know this kind of sounds like a meme, you guys. Yeah, I'm well aware that slam kind of sounds like a meme. But I was watching his video, and he's already doing pretty good damage as a two-hand slam build in Classic WoW. And that's with the improved slam talent point not even being that good. If we look at the classic WoW talent build, improved slam has 5 talent points you have to put into it. 5. That is a large amount of talent points that you have to commit to this talent for very, very little payoff, because each talent point decreases the casting time of slam by only 0.1 seconds. So really, this soaks up a ton of talent points and doesn't really give you that much. But if we look at what the new slam talent point does, it gives you 0.5 second cooldown reduction for each point, and it's only 2 points. So this is buffed by literally 5 times. Last time when we put 1 point in, it was only 0.1 seconds. Now we put 1 point in, it's 0.5 seconds. Literally buffing it 5 times. So putting 2 points into this makes your 1.5 second slam cast into a 0.5 second slam cast, making it way, way, way easier to rotate in between auto attacks. So is it possible to go for a hybrid build, trying to pick up all of the nice talent points from the arms tree and all of the nice talent points from the fury tree, and using slam as our extra ability and something to dump our rage with? So the last build I'm going to look at, it may be terrible, it may be good, I'm not quite sure, but it is certainly interesting. This is going to be the two-handed slam Impale build. So yes, we were able to pick up Death Wish, and we have Impale, we have anger management for more rage, we have two-handed weapon specialization, we have improved cleave, we still have enrage. If you want to try to taunt something, eat a hit, gain that proc of enrage, we still were able to get 3 out of 5 points into flurry. We weren't absolutely able to max this out, but we pick up improved slam. So yeah, this is a hybrid build. We're not using Bloodthirst, we're not using Mortal Strike, and we're not even going for the last tier of talent points in any of the trees. So is this build good? Well, I'm not quite sure, but it might have potential, and it certainly looks fun to play. Not only does it look fun to play, but there's a lot of different points that you can mix and match as well. You could drop points into flurry, and you could pick up sweeping strikes, so you could have sweeping strikes and Death Wish, and just do absolutely crazy AoE damage with your two-handed weapon. You could even pick up some points into sword specialization, pole axe specialization, or any weapon specialization that you want. You could drop points into enrage to max out your weapon specialization and still be level 60. So there's a lot of points with this build that you could technically play around with. So for all of you warrior mains out there, I want you to look at this build, play around with the points a little bit, and tell me, is this build just a meme? Is it absolutely terrible to not go for Mortal Strike and not go for Bloodthirst? I feel like this build does have a bit of potential. But does it have as much potential as the other Fury build or Arms build? I'm not really quite sure. Last but not least, we're going to look at a PvP build. And for this class in particular, guys, I'm only going to include one PvP build. Because let's be honest, if you're going into PvP and you don't have Mortal Strike, you're doing it wrong. And for all those people out there that play as a warrior, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. After grinding PvP in Warsong Gulch and Arathi Basin, you gotta respec, you gotta get Mortal Strike. It's just what it is, boys. Can't be helped. So with the one PvP build we're going for, yes, of course, we are going for a Mortal Strike build. And we actually gained quite a lot of interesting points. Most of these are going to be just like we saw in Classic WoW: Deflection, Charge, Iron Will. This is all well and good, especially if you're an orc. It makes it basically impossible to ever stun you with anything under the sun ever. Anger Management, Improved Overpower, which isn't absolutely necessary, but still pretty good to have. Deep Wounds, Two-Handed Specialization, Impale, Death Wish for big crazy damage. And then weapon specialization, obviously, this could be any weapon. If you have Might of Menethil, then please, by all means, go into Mace specialization, grab your Might of Menethil, and give people the big bonk on the head. Do huge damage and stun them while you're at it. But if you don't have Might of Menethil, and you have a sword or a pole axe, you can swap whatever weapon specialization you have your weapon for. And then we have Improved Hamstring, and the new and last talent point that we pick up in this build is Second Wind, and this is actually a really sweet ability. So if you're an orc, or even if you aren't an orc, we already have quite a lot of chance to resist stuns. But if we do end up getting stunned or immobilized, you'll generate 20 rage, which means you can use an ability after you get out of that stun or immobilization, and you regenerate 10% of your total health over 10 seconds. That means after you get stunned or immobilized, you regenerate 1% health per 1 second for 10 seconds, which is actually quite a lot of self-healing, and this might be enough self-healing for you to survive until your healer is able to get a heal off on you. Not only do we have second wind though, but when we're dipping down into the Fury tree with the rest of our talent points, we also pick up Blood Craze, which regenerates 3% of your total health after being the victim of a critical strike. So with this build, not only do you have Death Wish and some big damaging abilities, but you actually have quite a lot of ways to passively heal yourself as well. And then, of course, the last point we pick up is Piercing Hell, just so we have a little bit of kite potential, and or we slow people down in order for them to not be able to run away from us. So overall, I really think that this is the PvP build. I don't think that going Deep Fury for Rampage is going to be the play. I don't believe going for improved Berserker Stance or improved Whirlwind or anything like that is going to make or break our PvP encounter. Really, I think we want to pick up abilities like Piercing Hell, like Blood Craze, like Second Wind, and things of that nature. We could go a little bit deeper into the arms tree for Endless Rage, but really the extra rage generation isn't that necessary when compared to the toolkit that we gain from splashing into Fury. Alright guys, that's going to be it for Warrior, and be completely honest with me in the comment section, was I completely memeing with that hybrid slam build? I mean, I want to see it in action. I feel like it could potentially probably work. Plus, as a Warrior, who doesn't want to just give Patchwork a good slamming every once in a while, you know what I mean? Wait a second. Nah, screw it. No one could have taken that the wrong way. Anyways guys, if you liked this video, please take a second, take your finger, click the like button, maybe even the subscribe button if you like this video a whole lot, would really help me out. And stay tuned for future videos because we are going to finish up all the classes for TBC pre-patch, but not only that, but just like I said in the previous videos, obviously we are going to cover all of the TBC information as well. BIS list for phase 4 for multiple classes, BIS list for additional phases, money investment guides, what items from Classic WoW are items that you're going to want to hold on to, and much, much more. So please make sure you stay tuned and catch all of that content in the future. And until then, I'll see you guys next time.